is different from Coursera? Tell me.
Yeah, Abhilash, you can start the call. Hi team, welcome to Mojo Institute of Technology. So I would like to first of all like to apologize for the mistake in the event link. Tomorrow also the same event link will work for the workshop. I any which ways like now dropping an email to all the participants. Sorry for it. Today's event is all about like AWS, and Abhilash is our trainer who is having vast experience in the IT sector. Abhilash, over to you. You can start the session. And apology, Abhilash, for you also like people have got some wrong link.
No worries, no worries.
We can go ahead with the participants. Not a problem, Abhilash.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks.
So since we have only 4 of the members, we can make it more interactive, I guess. What about, how about you guys? Harini, Monica, Ranjit, Altaf. Can we make it interactive?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So
Yes, sir.
can I know what you're doing? Like, are you a student? Are you working somewhere? Can you know about a brief about you?
Students, sir.
Student. Okay. Altaf.
Sir, I'm also a student, sir.
Student. Okay. Harini and Ranjit, you there? Yeah, Ranjit, tell me. Hello. Fine. Okay. So let me talk about this cloud computing. I hope you are aware of. Let me share the screen. Hold on. Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Very good. So okay. This is fundamentals of cloud computing and AWS. So we will take there are a lot of cloud computing platforms, but before that, let me tell you, let me tell about myself. So I started my career. I did my bachelor's in engineering, BTech, back in it was passed out in 2003. I learned Linux, RHC, Red Hat certified courses, and I got certified and joined as a support engineer in one of the companies over there. So then, so back in 2003, I was in the support industry for 4 to 5 years. And then I started in 2009. I started an organization. I founded an organization called Support Sages, which was giving certification. Which was giving support for web hosting companies as well as a lot of server management and all. I'll tell about those details in a while. Then I took my SS certification, AWS certification back in 2016. And I also ran one of the organizers of AWS User Group Kochi. Then I actually, these things may not be easy for you. It's CI/CD. You may have heard of CI/CD pipelines. So I have specialized in the CI/CD pipelines and cost optimization in cloud, containerization, those kinds of stuff. That's what I brief about me. Now, so as a cloud computing, before we go to the cloud computing, let me give a brief, how this thing happened. What is the what's the background of internet and all. Those are very important because history is always it's good to learn. To understand how difficult was the back in maybe it's 90s only. Maybe since you guys are students, many of you may not have born at that point of time. So back in 95s, 90s, early 90s and all, it was very much internet was it's even if you are getting on a dial-up modem, you'll get 14.4 kbps or maybe 28.8 kbps. Then it increased to 64 kbps. We are talking about 64 kbps. Right now we get 64 mbps, which is 1,000 times better than that. It's that was the kind of a speed. So if you want to host a website, what happened was like, earlier there was nothing like, data centers and all. So earlier there was like, you buy a computer, then you host your or website, like, you will have a web server in it, you will have a DNS, you will have a lot of all the services in that particular machine. And then you use your home internet and power backup, like, whatever UPS backup or whatever was available, and you get their website up and running in that 64 kbps connection, or maybe a little bit. That time there was like, in US and all, there is something like T1 connection. Then there was like an even speeder connection, was like, ISDN connections were there. It was quite expensive. So right now you can get a website hosted in your website, like, GoDaddy or any other website, in less than like, 100 rupees per month, maybe like, 1,000 rupees per year kind of a plan is you can available. And even there is like, sometimes there are even free web hostings are also available, where you can host the website, like, for free. Back then, like 90s, 95 to 90s, early 90s, or even like, mid 90s and all, if you want to host a website, it will cost you approximately 1 lakh rupees. Just for a year, it will cost you 1 lakh rupees. And even then the speed is very, 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 very slow. So then there are a lot of, slowly the internet started booming up. Then there are a lot of websites came up, like, then one particular website and 64 kbps may not work fine, work faster. So then there are new technologies came in. And let me turn on my video. Yeah. So new technologies came in, and then there are a lot of requirements also came in. Like, you need more compute power, you need more and higher backup. Then there shouldn't be any interruption to your services. Now what happened was, like, then there is a concept called data center came in, where this data center was so special. Like, for example, data center is a kind of a machine. Consider it as like a building where you have got lots of machines available. Like, there is something like, rack, 42U rack. 42U rack is like, one rack. It's a kind of a almara. You consider it as like an almara, where it's specially designed almara, where you will have 42 1U rack. For example, it's considered like, your desktop. Desktop is like, 4U rack. It's like, that means like, you can have only so how many, like 10 such machines only be racked in a 42U rack. So similarly, you have got 42 machines can be racked in a 42U rack. So that kind of an almara, there will be around 300, 500, or maybe lots more racks will be there. So, but then those are like, power consumption, lot of things have to be taken care by the data center. Data center got specialized in lots of power backup will be there. Like, even if you have got lots of issues and all, like the power backup will be there. Even there you lose your current for use your electricity for maybe weeks and all, still they will run around the backups. Electricity power generators are there. And there will be redundant internet connections will be there. For example, right now you have got Airtel connection. So what if your Airtel is gone? Your Airtel is gone, then if you have got another Jio or something else, or Hathway, or whatever be your providers over there, I mean, a lot of this one, like there, what happens is like you can easily switch the internet, right? Similarly, in data centers, you have got lots of upstream providers. You call it like, transit, like, upstream providers are there. So then this data center, if you have to run a data center, that means like, you have to get into your engagement with a monthly engagement needs to be there. Like, for example, I wanted to run this application for like, I have a college project running. I'd say like, this college project will be having something like, I just need it for running for 1 day. Even if for running, you wanted that compute for 1 day, you have to pay for a month, or at least a month, or maybe sometimes you may end up paying for a year. So that means like even for 1 day, you'll have to pay in lakhs or maybe thousands. So that time, that is the kind of that is where the kind of like, data centers and all, those were the implications of the data centers. Now you need to know about the networking to run a data center. You need to know about this networking. You need to know about hardware. You need to know about replace this hard disk. lot of things, like, a lot of machines, like just like you install the operating system, you go to your machine, and just like, how you manage your own desktop or a laptop, or how you manage your lab network in your colleges. So that was the kind of a complexity was there in your old days before cloud. Now these data centers, like, we are talking about one particular machine. Then there is concept of virtualization came in. So the virtualization, what happened was virtualization, like, we have one particular machine, and it is actually, you must have heard of virtualization and VirtualBox. You might have heard of VirtualBox. You may have heard of VMware. There are a lot of other virtualization technologies available. Now what happened was, now this virtualization came in, and these virtualized system, they send it, like, for example, they have those virtualized machines gave them flexibility of a complete root access, root or administrator access. It was independent of your, say, for example, you have got one laptop. So how many of you have used VirtualBox? Any virtualization technologies? Any of you have used virtualization technologies here?
Oracle Virtual Machine. I've used Oracle Virtual Machine.
Very good, very good. So that is what that is exactly the virtualization. So what happens is, like, you are running a Windows machine. On top of it, you are running a box on it, and you are installing another operating system on top of it, isn't it? So
Yes, sir.
similar. Yes, exactly. So what happens is, like, that machine is independent. You can install any operating system in that machine. It can be Linux, it can be Windows, again, Windows inside Windows, it can be Solaris, it can be any operating system, you can do it. So similarly, that becomes, like, you can run multiple machines in one particular hardware or a physical device. So just like, how you did your Oracle VirtualBox. Perfect. That's very good. Now that situation was there, like, virtualization was there. Now what happened was, again, even right now, there is nothing like, per second billing or nothing like that. So then there are a lot of other technologies came in. The speed, the compute power becomes a lot of available. So why did there was virtualization came in? Like, consider this situation. Why we are using virtualization for you, for students like you? If you want to have a different operating system running on your same machine, you either have to do a root dual boot. When you have to dual boot, you have to shut down the machine, and then you have to come up with a new operating system. If you want to switch between Linux and Windows, you do like that. Now you have a virtualization technologies in front of in your machine. Then you can install a VirtualBox, Oracle VirtualBox, and you install this software. But in real-time enterprise solutions, why this came in? Because why this technology was invented or they were using is because the compute was so much expensive. So compute power, like, for example, if you want to have one operating system, if you want to have a suppose, like, you want to run an application, say a Java application. Okay, so this Java application requires one, suppose, like, you want a Linux machine, you are running this Java application on a Linux machine. Now what if I want to run a .NET project? So it's a high-end .NET project which you cannot be running. I know, like, there is mode, mono, and all. So I'm not considering those situations. Let's I wanted to have I want to run an SQL server. I want to run a .NET application in it. So there it was not possible. So what happens, like, you need to have a different. You need to buy another machine for that. At the same time, suppose, like, this machine was having a capacity of around 32 GB RAM, 4 core in that machine. So you are using it for Java machine, 4 core and 16 GB RAM or 32 GB RAM. 4 core and 32 GB RAM is the configuration of the your physical machine, which runs the Java application, which is on Linux. Okay. Now this application has to only requires 2 GB or maybe or maybe, like, a 4 GB RAM and 2 core. The rest of the processing power or the compute power or the memory or whatever be the resources, they are like, underutilized. But still you cannot run this application, the .NET application in this one. So that is where the virtualization concept came in. Now what happened was, like, you have this whole machine coming. Consider it like this: there is one physical machine. On top of it, there is something like hypervisor or a VM or a kind of, like, it's considered, it's like an operating system by itself. You can't tell it as an operating system. It's a feature actually. but still you can consider it. There's a hypervisor ending. There are different type of virtualization available, but I am talking about a kind of full virtualization where you have this hypervisor ending. So on top of this hypervisor, it's a base OS will be there. Like for example, VMware and all, if there is one base OS, you won't be able to run any application on it. But there are other cases, like for example, Linux, what you can do is like you can run a hyperware there on top of it, and the bottom line, you can have a Linux operating system, and on top of it, you run a hypervisor, which is an application by itself. Then on top of it, you run different VMs on it. So that was the kind of a situation which was running. So later, what happens, like this VMware itself was like, you need 1 GB, 1 core and 2 GB RAM. That VM itself, like, VPS or VM or whatever you call it, that virtualization itself was like, too much consuming, too much consuming. Like, it was like, there was like, there lots of resources were considered. Then there was a concept called containerization, where the containerization is actually a independent this one, but instead of VM, it is just a process. It's just a process in the machine. Like, there is something like, C groups, namespaces, and all. Containers actually use those facilities to isolate the processes from the other processes. So it's actually a kind of then the VMware becomes a containerization. Right now, it's like, even there is something like, micro VMs, functions as a service, like, those all things are there. That's how the computing went in, or the technology, how we run this application went on. Now, so what is this cloud computing? Suppose, like, the best example is like, AWS, Amazon runs Great Indian Festival. Great Indian Shopping Festival. Yes, Great Indian Shopping Festival, and Flipkart also runs something like Big Billion Days. So you might have heard of it. You would have there are a lot of offers going on. So even if you don't access these shopping websites frequently, on those days, since there are a lot of offers going on, you actually go to these websites and at least do some kind of a window shopping. There you try to purchase something, like, what I am saying, what I'm trying to say is like, there are a lot of traffic, unexpected traffic. It's not unexpected in the sense, like, it's not a regular traffic. It's not unexpected. It's not a regular traffic. But then back in, like, you have some kind of a capacity. Like, then suppose, like, you have this Hotstar. You all heard of this Hotstar, right? So you watch IPL in it. So how many of you here watch IPL? Premier League? No one? Okay. So this IPL is whenever there is an IPL going on, this Hotstar viewers will be like, millions. Sometimes they even hit like, 10 million or 1 crore. They actually hit like that, or maybe even more actually. So that's the kind of viewers they have, the Hotstar have, whenever there is an IPL coming up. So where is this compute capacity coming from? This compute capacity has to be, it's not like, it's not coming on the fly. So what happens, like, before that, if I have, like, this is my kind of consider cloud, just like, cloud compute, before cloud computing, how was the situation? Like, if you have got, like, exams going on, and like, whenever there is an exam going on, exam results are getting published, like, for example, your school leaving examination, or maybe your particular examination, or whatever be there is a result coming up, you all hit the website. But if you have noticed, like, earlier, I'm not sure, like, whether you face this experience, you face this, but at least around 4 to 5 years back, whenever you try to access your exam results, this doesn't come easily, right? You have to press enter, or refresh the page continuously to get this result. At least at some point of time, you will get the result, right? So that was the kind of a situation. So it's like, it will take 1 or 2 hours to get the result. Why is that? Because the capacity is limited. So they were expecting around 10,000 visitors at a time. So you can have, like, so you have got, like, you can have like hundreds of machines, and maybe, like, instead of, let's forget this cluster, let's have one particular dedicated machine. So you can have like a 128 GB RAM, or maybe 256 GB of RAM machine, and then you can have, like, 32 or 100 core or maybe 96 core processors, you can have these, but then you will be limited. Your usage will be limited. Now what happens is, like, this is where the beauty of cloud computing is. Now suppose, like, you have got this 100 machines. I'll explain those things in the next slides. Actually, there is something like a horizontal scale, vertical scaling, and all. I'll explain. So now, so there are a lot of cloud computing models. So these are the main compute models which is available. Let me tell you on what all these, each of these actually. On premises is like, you have your own data center, you manage your data center, you manage your servers, you manage your storage, you have to manage your networking, you have to manage the virtualization, then the operating system. Any problem with these are all like very common stuff. Your operating system in your laptop also, sometimes your operating system doesn't boot up, right? So in those cases, like, what do? You either reformat the entire your operating system itself, like you reinstall this operating system, or sometimes you keep a backup of this operating system, then reinstall it. So those things in the servers, this is something which you need to manage as a system administrator or a network administrator. So you need to have all these applications, all these structures, like, this available on in your data center. Like, for example, you need to manage your own servers, you need to manage your storage. Like, for example, if your hard disk fails, you need to replace the hard disk. If your firewall blocks your IP, if there is any kind of DDoS happening, then you need to take care of that. The virtualization, you need to figure out the virtualization. You need to fix their file system check. Any kind of an error is happening in your file operating system, you need to figure it out. Then there is runtime, middleware, data, application. You need to manage the entire stack. Now it came to the AWS or cloud services. There are three main models of the cloud computing models are available. One is like, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So these are the three main cloud computing models, but there are lots and lots other compute models are available right now. So these are the main computing models which is available right now. Now what happens is, suppose, like, AWS. Let's take the example of AWS. What all public cloud infrastructure provider other than AWS? Other than AWS, what all private cloud providers do you know? Anyone?
So can you please repeat it, sir?
So what I was asking is, other than AWS, what all private clouds, public cloud servers do you know? Public cloud providers. Okay, have you heard of Azure, GCP, and all?
Yes, Google Cloud Platform, right?
Exactly. Yes, Google Cloud Platform, Azure Platform.
Yes.
Those are all the major cloud providers. Now, so those are the main private cloud providers. Now, those private cloud providers have got these features. Like, there is something like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Now, here we are taking AWS as an example. Now, infrastructure as a service, there is something like, EC2, or where they provide you the complete infrastructure. But what happens is, like, you don't have to use the servers, the virtualization concept, the networking, everything will be taken care by the AWS or any other public cloud providers. But you have to choose the operating system, you have to choose the middleware, you have to choose the runtime, data, application, everything you will have to figure it out. You will have to work on those things. Like, for example, if you want to deploy an application, you have to, the rest of the last 4 stack will be provided by the public cloud providers. Then the rest of the 5 stacks we need to provision and manage it. So that is what the infrastructure as a service. Now, when it comes to these, like, virtualization, networking, storage, servers, those are all managed by AWS, Azure, etc. Now, when it comes to the platform as a service, now what happens? See, the end operating system is completely managed by them. Middleware is completely managed by them. Runtime is completely managed. How they run, whether it be containers or whether it's a VM, not at all a concern for us. So what you have to do is, like, only provide the application and the data. That is the only thing which you have to provide. That's they are offering as a platform as a service. Now here EC2 is like, just like you consider it as a VM. Okay, you just have a VM in it, like, VM as in like, virtual machine. Here, or Monica has said like, virtual box is there. So virtual box is a infrastructure as a service. If someone is giving you the entire platform, like, virtual box for you, and you have the access to this virtual box, and from there you have an option to install this operating system, everything, then that is infrastructure as a service. So someone who is providing this in this VM for you, he is giving as an infrastructure as a service. Now let's move on to this platform as a service. Now where what happens is, they have given you, they have installed this database server, MySQL or MS SQL or whatever be the database server. They have completely installed this database server for you, and then they are sharing, they are giving you the access to this database server. So then they manage their application. They manage the MySQL database. They manage their entire database. Everything they are taking care of themselves. Now that is an example. That is where you are giving it as a platform as a service. Like for example, you have this WordPress website. Okay. Now in this WordPress website, everything is given. All you have to do is like you have to upload your own theme and run it. So that can be considered as a platform as a service. But now the software as a service, the best example is like, you are not, so right now you are using this Gmail. You are using Gmail on a regular basis, right? So that is actually you are given, you are not caring about, you don't know about what are the servers they are doing. You are least bothered about storage. All you have to get is, all you have to do is like they are giving you 15 GB of storage for free, and that is all it matters for you. So storage is free, networking you don't have to consider, virtualization. All you have to do is use the Gmail, register and use it. So you are not bothered whether this application is not working, whether you have this data, where is this data stored, nothing. All you have to do is just use the application. Here there is a, just like, this is like, you don't have any work at all. As a user, you don't have any work at all. Here, platform as a service, as a user, you have to load your application and all that is there. Now, for example, in ECL, there are a lot of other services are there that I'm just giving an example. Now we have got this infrastructure, like, you have to manage these many stacks, and on-premise, you will have to manage entire stack. But so which one is easier for you as a user? As a user, it is the software as a service is very much easier for you. But as a someone who knows or works in AWS as an administrator, then this is not that easy. For you, you will have to manage the entire stack as a cloud engineer or as a DevOps engineer or as an infrastructure engineer, whatever, or the SysOps engineer, whatever be your designation in cloud. If it is a software as a service, if the provider, whoever you are working for, if they are actually offering their service as a software as a service, that means you will have to take care of all these stacks. All these stacks means like if there is any problem with this application, you have to do this application performance monitoring. So that means like if an application is not performing well, you are the one who is responsible for solving it. You don't have a, you can't say like, of course you will have a different team available, but still with the cloud computing, you have everything to be managed here. For example, like, you don't have to worry about the servers. Servers will be managed by AWS. Storage will be managed by AWS. Networking will be managed by AWS. Virtualization will be managed by AWS. If they are not a platform as a service, then yes. Otherwise, we will have to manage the operating system. This is where the demarcation happens. Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. So what's AWS? The full form of AWS must be very known to you. What is it? Like, Amazon Web Services. That's okay. You understand Amazon Web Services. So what happened was back in 2000, the story goes like this. Back in 2004 and something like that, during that period, they have a service called SQS. They have different services, but they had a service like an SQS. They actually started using this SQS. Let's use this. So before that, like, they were having this Amazon web services. Before that, they were running Amazon.com. So Amazon.com, just like, I told you about these cases, like, where Big Billion Days, Great Indian Shopping Festival and all. Amazon.com also had some kind of outages. Before I talk about these outages, they had some kind of programs, like, similar to this Great Indian Shopping Festival. They do in Indian region. They have similar in Amazon US region also. Now, what happened was they were having lots of hits. So what they did is, like, they accumulated lots of computers. So other than those promotion days, they were a lots of compute power was going. I mean, like, it was wasted. Like, if only when there is promotion, they are being used, but other times they are not able to use it. Now that is where they have started to outsource or give away their compute resources to the public. So, for example, there are other companies, like, they are associated with other companies where they also don't need to have this capacity almost all the day, almost 24/7. They don't need this capacity. They need it, like, if I have this capacity, suppose, like, you have this you have this desktop, you are using it in your morning time. Suppose, like, you are able to use this compute power, you are able to give away the compute power to someone else, and you are paid for it. Will you be interested in giving away your compute power? Won't you be? I'm pretty sure, like, yes, you will be interested, because I will be interested, because when I was doing in my college, there is something like, search for extraterrestrial intelligence. SETI project was there. So then what I used to do is, like, I gave away the compute power to SETI. I was not paid and all, but still, it was like, I was not using these resources anyway. So let them use it. So that was the kind of approach which I had. But then right now it's not the case. You will actually get paid for giving away your compute resources for Bitcoin mining and all. So so that is possible. So what happens is, AWS also thought in the same way. Amazon also thought in the same way, and they started outsourcing or give away their compute resources to the other enterprises as well. And that slowly became a hit. And that's where, like, AWS got evolved. Then the S3 came in. A lot of other services came in. So they are the real pioneers of the cloud cloud computing. Before that, there is nothing like, it's not a cloud in the sense, like, there was kind of a cluster available. So if you have got lots of compute resources required, then you have got this something like, you have got lots of computers. Then there will be a load balancer available, and they will distribute your workload to different clustered machine and all. So that was a major key change AWS brought in. They, I mean, not the AWS, but they are the real pioneers of the public cloud infrastructure. You must have heard of Airbnb, Amazon.com, Netflix, Hotstar. Those are all powered by AWS in the backend. So the compute power, the resources, or whatever services you are using, like whenever you are watching your Hotstar or Netflix, remember, it is actually using the AWS infrastructure in the backend. Got it? Now, the beauty of the cloud is, like, this is like, scalability and high availability. Let's explain about the scalability and high availability. Suppose, like, you have one machine. Now, one machine, there are different set of scalabilities. I'll all explain it to that. So before that, like, let's explain the scalability part. Now, scalability means an application can handle the greater workloads by adapting itself. Like, what do you do? Like, for example, you have one machine, one small VM. Okay, let's like you have this 1 GB RAM or 2 GB RAM machine or something like that. It can handle around 100 visitors, 100 hits of a website. Now, there are two ways you can scale, right? So if you have got 200 visitors, what will you do? You can increase this 1 GB machine to 2 GB machine. Then it can accept 200 GB of 200 visitors. Now there is 300 visitors. What will you do? You will increase to 300 visitors. So 3 GB RAM. So that is called vertical scalability. So what is it? Like, just like that, it increase the size of the instance. Let's assume, like, you have let me explain in your desktop model. So desktop, you have got 4 GB RAM. Let's assume like you have a 2 GB or a 4 GB desktop machine is there. RAM is there. Now, if you want to increase the capacity, what will you do? You buy another 4 GB RAM, you attach to it 4 GB RAM. You attach this desktop, you attach this desktop, and you get the 8 GB RAM in total, right? So what if like you need more? So you go for this and you get another 4 GB or maybe like another 8 GB RAM. But do you know most of this motherboard has got a limitation on your RAM size, right? So maximum capacity, maximum RAM which your motherboard will support may be limited to something like 16 GB or 32 GB RAM. I'm talking about your desktop machine. Now, if you still want to run more application, more website hits are coming up. So what you will do? You will have to go for horizontal scaling. Now, what do you mean by horizontal scaling? Suppose you have got one machine, 1 GB RAM with which can handle 100 visitors. 1 GB can handle 100 visitors. Okay. Now, instead of you have got 200 visitors right now, instead of increasing this 1 GB to 2 GB RAM, what I am doing is I will have another 1 GB running in parallel. Now, if you have got 3 GB RAM, if there will be 300 visitors, there will be third machine. 400 visitors, there will be fourth machine. 500 visitors, there will be fifth machine. So I hope you got the idea. Now, how do they load balance? How do they scale the machines? Now you have got something like a load balancer in front of these machines. Now load balancer will distribute this load. Like you have got 100 visitors. There are different algorithms available, but let's use this. Let's assume a very simple one, round robin algorithm or whatever, like or least recently used or whatever you have. There are a lot of algorithms are there. Let's assume like you have this load balancer coming. Now visitors coming. They have got first visitor coming on. There will be one machine here. Second visitor, one machine, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's all done. Okay, let's assume like this load balancer had 100 machines. Now the load balancer has, we have told load balancer, okay, whenever there is a 101 user, start a second machine. Now the load balancer will tell the virtualizer or VMware or whatever there are a lot of in the backend there is happening. So this will tell the group or auto scaling group, then tell them, okay, I have got a 101st visitor. Can you accommodate? Yes, he can do it in the initial, they will do it. So 110 or 120 or 150 and all, there will be a second machine. Third machine, fourth machine. This load balancer, we have got configured this kind of rules available. Like, they have set something like, scalable rules. They have got this scaling rules available. Now what happens is like, depending on the CPU usage or depending on the request coming up, depending on the memory usage, these machines will pop in. Now, suppose like, number of machines are coming down, number of requests are coming down. You have this huge results published. Okay, the results are done. Once you got the result, you are not going to use it anymore. Okay, so what happens is like, all the million hits are gone. Right now they have only, what do they have? They have only something like 10 users, 20 users, 30 users and all is there. Now these horizontally scaled machine will go down. Slowly, they will go off. Like for example, fifth machine will be shut down, fourth machine will be shut down, third machine will be shut down. Suppose like, you have only 30 users at a time, only one machine will remain there. Suppose there is another spike coming up, all the 5 machines or maybe 10 machines or 100 machines will come up. Okay, so but then what is the beauty of the cloud computing? You pay as you go. Suppose you can compare this similar with your electricity bill. You have all these facilities available. Tube light is there, fan is there, microwave oven is there, lots of electronic devices are there in your home. But then you pay your electricity bill only for whatever you are using. So there could be like, if you have got, it's a reverse actually. It's the reverse in the sense like, if you are using more units in case, in your electricity board will charge you more. Like, so for example, if you have got 100 units, you will be paying say 100 rupees. You have got 200 units consumption, you will be paying 300. 300 will be your bill. Similarly, but in cloud, what happens is the more you use it, the less what you pay for per unit of your usage. So that is how the horizontal scalability comes in. Now there is something like high availability. So high availability is something which is not easily available in your traditional system. Now what happens is AWS or any cloud providers, they offer something like, availability zone or regions. There is something like, the concept is called regions are there. Now what happens with the regions? Region is like a collection of data centers. So for example, India, there is a region available in Mumbai. AWS has got a region available in Mumbai. Similarly, GCP also has got it. Azure also has got a region in Mumbai. Okay. But then when they say the region is in Mumbai, it need not be in Mumbai. It can be in Pune. It can be anywhere, like 100 to 200 kilometers radius will be there. It could be having a different regions, will there be different data centers. There will be at least 2 data centers whenever AWS announces a region. Now this region, you got it, like the concept is like, AP South, that is Asia Pacific South. So Asia Pacific South is India, Mumbai region. Now if you're going for US East, there is US East 1, US East 2, US East 3. There are a lot of regions available out there. There may be around 16 or less than 20 regions available. Every year they are announcing new regions. Okay, so each region will have 2 different. So in your traditional data center, like traditional system, you host your application in a data center. Now what happens? The data center got some kind of a problem. Let's like the hurricane came up, or any something like a flood came in. This data center is getting flooded. Your entire data will be lost. That is also a possibility, right? But in terms of cloud, you have got high availability. Now, how high availability is, you have this at least 2 data centers running. So this high availability is like you can have your application hosted in both the data center. Even if one data center is gone down or is unavailable for any reason, your load balancer is highly available. So load balancer will traffic route to the second region. So that is exactly what is happening in a high availability. So your application will be hosted on 2 data centers simultaneously, and that goes in hand with the horizontal scale. Okay. Now there is something like infrastructure as a code. Now, what is infrastructure as a code? Suppose before that, like this is where the cloud engineers are. This is why the DevOps engineer or a cloud engineer and all, like we are in high demand. It's like a huge prospect. Like we are actually it's like lots of candidates are there, but they don't have the right knowledge on what they are doing. So this is where you actually need to it's not just the infrastructure as a code, but whatever I have explained to you so far, infrastructure as a code as a part also. Right now what happens is your provisioning of a server, provisioning of your switches, provisioning of an IP, provisioning of your website, provisioning of your entire CI/CD pipelines, everything is available as a code. All you have to do is, like, if you want to set up a server, if you want to set up a machine, I mean, like, if you want to set up a IP, you want to set up a load balancer, you want to complete infrastructure, whatever you set it up as infrastructure, you want to create a database, everything you can create it as a code. There are a lot of tools available in AWS. There is something like AWS CloudFormation. Then you have in Azure there is, like, RM is there, like, Azure Resource Manager is there. Then but then most of one of the common infrastructure as a code platform is Terraform. So what it means is, so basically what happens, like, I set it up the very first time I have to set up an infrastructure means in the AWS, I need to provision a VM or EC2 machine. I need to install the software there. I need to set up or optimize the application. I need to set up a database server. I need to set up an object storage, like, S3 and all. I need to set up security aspect. I need to tighten the security. Lot of things. It'll take me around, say, for example, I'll take me around 8 hours of job. Okay, to configure the entire thing. Let's assume, like, I have configured. I'll be using 8 hours of workload is there. Now, if I want to run this 8 hours of, I have configured this entire thing and I exported the entire application as infrastructure as a code. I get it as an YAML file. Then I use YAML file is yet another markup language. That's something we'll talk about it later. So what happens is, like, we take this entire application, the infrastructure as a code. And what do you do with this code? You take this and your entire 8 hours of work, consider like this. You have written, like, you have coded, you have done it, everything you have done it. Like, you have taken this entire infrastructure account, you delete the entire AWS account, completely delete it. But you have this infrastructure as a code right in your hand, in your machine, okay, in your desktop. Now you can use this entire machine, this code, you can create a new AWS account, you deploy this entire code, it will be up and running in like less than 10 minutes time. Your 8 hours of work, you get it up and running in a new AWS account in less than 10 minutes of work. It's as simple as, it won't even take 10 minutes. It will be less than 5 minutes also. But assume, like, it's just for safety, let's assume like 10 minutes. So what will that means? So if you want to replicate this application, replicate this infrastructure or anything, you can actually use it by just run it like, simply run it, it's done. Okay. Now what happens, the beauty of it is, like, entire infrastructure is managed as an infrastructure as a code. I hope you are getting me there. So the time consumption, automation, speed and simplicity. Error prone is, like, otherwise, otherwise, like, you have documented the entire thing, you pass it to the next your junior level. So what happens is, like, they are actually doing it, they may not know about whatever you have done it, so they may have made some silly mistakes which you overthought. Like, you thought, like, this is something very much easy, like, why do you have to do that? So there, what happens is, there could be a chance of error happening. So with the infrastructure as a code, you have to completely deploy, you just deploy it, there is no chance of errors if you have properly configured this YAML. The configuration consistency, what happens is, like, if you have got multiple servers or multiple accounts, you update it one place, you apply it there, you edit it in one place, you apply it across the accounts, it will be updated simultaneously, and that's why the configuration consistency will be there. Okay. Now, why do you choose AWS as a career? This is the latest magic quadrant. The Gartner is a survey company. Let's consider that it's someone who will help you in a lot of, just consider it's a company. Okay, as of August 2020, let's see, these are our niche players, these are like 4 quadrants are there. Now, who is the leader? Amazon Web Services is the leader. Who is, like, where are they? Google and all, like, very much far behind. AWS is, like, way ahead. Microsoft is catching up. Google is behind Microsoft. So what that means is, if you know AWS, your chances of job opportunities are very, very much higher. It's so high that if your AWS is, AWS compared to Tencent Cloud, you may not have heard of it. IBM Cloud, maybe. Oracle, maybe. Alibaba Cloud, maybe. But I'm pretty sure, like, you know all these 3 clouds. I mean, you know about it, right? So that's why, like, this is AWS is being used by almost all the enterprises across the globe. So that's why the AWS is in huge demand, and they are very much innovative also. Every now and then there is, like, there is it's being said, like, you are getting this AWS releasing a kind of a new features or updates every 1 second or something, every 1 minute or similarly, something like that. So it's every minute there is a new feature released on AWS. So that's the curve of innovation goes on. Like, AWS is so much high because of so much in demand because of these features. They have got different verticals also available. There is a DevOps. There are machine learning, AI, ML. These are available. Then there is data analytics are available. Then there is tools available for big data. Then there is available for storage. Consider any platform. There is even quantum computing is there. Lots of things are right now coming up with AWS. Okay, so they are like way ahead of the other competitors. Okay, so how do you get your first AWS certificate? This is the kind of these are the AWS certifications available right now. This cloud practitioner is relatively simple. It just introduces you the very basics of it. Then there's a certified, like a developer certified, SysOps certified. There are a lot of specialty certifications. There are a lot of 13 or so, 12 or 13 certifications are available right now. These are like specialty certifications. Now, why this is in demand? Let's assume you are going to someone who is actually using a lot of AWS. Okay, suppose they are running a kind of AWS specialized companies and all. Like if they want to have their kind of some kind of a technology partner or any kind of a consultancy partner, they need to have this certification. They should have, before they get any company should get, if any organization to get a partner certification with AWS, they will have to get at least 2 accredited person, who at least 2 persons who have got certificate in it. So that one of the reason why this AWS certificate is in so demand. It applies for anyone, but this is very much demand. And AWS offers lots of training materials, but still, when you are trying to learn, you need some kind of a mentor or someone to help you with that. So AWS Cloud Practitioner is a very basic course. Right now, it's like they just let you know what is EC2, what is it used for, what is S3, what is SQS, those kind of things. Now, Developer Associate is more of a developer-oriented tutorial training material. For example, they will be asking there will be API-related questions will be there in your examination. SysOps certificate, difference between an architect and a SysOps administrator is see, if you are a SysOps certified personnel, you are actually on the implementation side of the things. Solution architect he is the one who is designing the architecture. He may not be a implementation guy, but he must be knowing about the inside out. Some features are not available it's some there could be limitation of the services. So that is something which a solution architect should be well aware of. So for example, let me give a wild example. For example, VPC. You can only attach. I'm not sure. Many of you will not be able to follow it up, but just for the sake of if there is anyone who is who's used AWS, then they will be able to understand. So what happens is in VPC you can only attach one virtual private gateway. Suppose you need 2 virtual private gateway. Those architecture design has to be done by solution architect only. So he must be knowing about this AWS infrastructure in detail, the limitations of the AWS infrastructure in detail. Those questions are the exam is really tough. It's not that easy. But then yes, you will be able to crack it. So these are the lot of certificates are available. Solution architect professional, and engineer professional is very much difficult. So the specialty, if you are into specialty and these specialties and all, you can take it forward. So that's about this AWS certification. Now let's focus on this AWS associate certified course. So what happens is this is the #1 cloud certification for so many years. Anyone who is asking for this AWS solutions architect, it's almost all the companies will recognize. If you have in your resume, if you have the AWS certificate solution architect associate certification in your resume, there are 2 things. One, any person who is interviewing you will be able to identify whether you are a real, if you are just taken the certification or you actually know about stuff. So the certification is though in very much in high demand. This will actually get you an entry to your resume. Entry to an organization. This certification will give you an entry to an organization. But cracking the interview, you should have the knowledge. You should have the practical knowledge. Need not be that you have this practical knowledge by actually working for somewhere. you should have the practical knowledge by actually implementing lots of projects, either for your academic purposes or for your career or while you're training. At least you should have that kind of an implementation. You actually have to do the implementation, because then only you will see. DevOps engineering is it's not that easy. So you will have to. It's like learning swimming. So if you know the swimming, you don't learn swimming. If you know swimming, like let me ask you, like how many of you learned swimming by postal? I'm pretty sure there is no one here. If you know swimming, you can't learn swimming by sitting in the shore. You actually have to get into the water, and then only you learn swimming. Similarly, you'll have to practice to get it certified, or get it to practice in AWS or cloud infrastructure. You will have to actually do the practicing. Then only you will be getting they will be able to crack the exam, crack the interviews and all. Okay. So the associate certification will actually focuses on these things, like the core AWS services, but they will go in a little bit depth. There will be use cases. They will be asking you questions. If this is the case, which one is the tools in which we need to use it? Those questions will come in. There will be scenarios also. You need to work on those aspects. So that is the associate level certification. And tomorrow we have a free workshop where we will walk you through a little bit of how to provision this AWS, EC2 instance, a lot of things. Let's see. So yeah, over to you, HRB. Hello. So do you have any questions, guys? Yes, Ranjit, we can do it. I will ask HRB, are you there? Hello, Hiran? Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have any questions, Monica? Or anyone here?
No, sir.
Okay. Kiran, are you there? Hello. Kiran? Hello, Hiran? Hello, Hiran? Yeah, guys. If you don't have any questions, let's wind up. Hiran, I'm not able to call. So
Yeah, hi, Abhilash. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So Hiran, I have done my presentation. So Ranjit have asked to share the PPT.
Yeah, we can able to do it. It's not a big deal. I can able to help them with it.
Okay. Okay.
So thanks, Abhilash. Thanks for holding this session for us. And guys, tomorrow we are having a workshop on the same AWS. Please, you can reconnect on the same ID. And Abhilash will be again the trainer who will be like demonstrating on AWS and AWS related few of the services. So it would be good like if you guys join us and learn from us. Thank you, and we will be sharing the feedback form shortly, maybe over the email today or tomorrow after the session. So please provide us the feedback so that we can able to provide more sessions like this to you folks.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Okay, bye. Thanks, Abhilash.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks all. Stay safe, stay home.